Slay. There we go. This is a little dim, but I think it'll be fine. This is gonna be so Hey y'all, welcome back or welcome to the Pickle Jar. This is What's the Dill. I'm your host, Mackenzie Pickle. Y'all, I'm done with 75 hard. Oh, I'm so proud of myself. I did it. 75 days. If I'm honest, I could not have gotten through this difficult challenge without leaning on the Lord and his strength and without the support and encouragement of my family and friends. Truthfully, it was difficult, but it was worth it. I think you can see a difference in me now versus me on January 1st when I first started. I feel better, not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I just feel a lot better, more disciplined, less bloated. This was a good challenge for me, and it was hard, but I am very proud of myself. I've never done anything like this, and I'm just proud of myself and thankful for the Lord's guidance and the Lord's strength, and thankful that he's placed people in my lives who can be those accountability partners and can be those little bits of encouragement when I need it. Anyways, though, how are you doing? I feel like Joey Tribbiani. How you doing? Terrible. I'm sorry for that. We've got another new movie to review today. This week, we are discussing The Electric State. The Electric State is a new movie that just came out on Netflix a few days ago, and it's loosely based on a novel from 2018 with the same name by Simon Stålenhag, I think is how you pronounce his name. It was directed by Anthony and Joe Russo. Love them. And it stars Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt with many stars in the supporting cast. It was released on Netflix, and that's where you can watch it now. It's only a Netflix release. And a little fun fact for everyone, I actually worked on this movie as a background actor. So there's a scene where Michelle runs up and finds Christopher on the beach, and he has broken this little robot toy thing, and she's trying to help him calm down and everything. Well, I was a part of filming on that scene. What we filmed that day was that beach scene. I was there when they shot that scene, but there was a wider shot with all these people on the beach, and we had the people in those suits with the dots on them to be CGI robots, and it was set in the 80s, and everybody had big hair and these bright colored outfit, all this stuff. And there was a whole thing where the boy was supposed to run past people, and then you see him breaking the toy and you see all of that stuff. It all got cut. When I was watching the movie, I was like, oh, I wonder if I'll see myself, whatever. No, I actually didn't see anyone that I filmed with that day because it was all cut. And that kind of stinks. That kind of stinks. However, I still got paid for it, so it's fine. It's okay. And I did get to see the Russo brothers in action, which was really cool to get to watch them direct up close because I am a fan of theirs. So that was really cool. But yeah, we filmed that scene in late fall. And just to give you a little bit of the details of my experience, I had a good time. It was pretty cold, and it is a beach scene. We were all in bathing suits. I was in an 80s bikini, so I was freezing, but they did have some cover-ups and everything. And we filmed for 12 to 13 hours, and it's all gone. It's all cut. Maybe they'll release an extended version with deleted scenes or things like that. That would be cool, because I remember sitting there and with my big hair and all this stuff, and Anthony and Joe Russo were not giving direction to background actors directly. The PAs were on set doing that and everything, and you would have some 80s doing stuff with us. But Anthony and Joe were directing this little kid to run past a bunch of the extras because he was the focal point of the shot with this toy and everything. And I remember them standing there and they're setting it up and everything, and they're giving this young actor direction, and they point to me and they're like, you see that girl right there? You're gonna run right past her. And I was shell shocked because I'm oh my gosh, Anthony and Joe Russo have seen my face in person. They have pointed at me. Obviously, they did not speak to me. We're not I'm not important to the storyline, but it was just really cool to be holy cow, two of my favorite directors are using me as a reference point for this person. I don't know. Anyways, it was great to be a part of, and it was really fun to see at least a tiny little portion of the movie up close in person, and to see Millie Bobby Brown work up close, I remember passing her and she smiled and I smiled back, you know, and she was great to watch work, and it was cool to see her work with Anthony and Joe. And I love Anthony and Joe Russo's work, so it's like, that was cool. It was pretty cool to be in that atmosphere and that environment. I don't have a ton I want to talk about, if I'm being completely honest. You know, the movie's on Netflix. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. I think it's really cool. The concept is really cool. I really like the setting, and I think they did a really good job of world building. It makes a lot of sense, especially the beginning with all of the MTV shots and everything. And also AI Bill Clinton. That was crazy. I really enjoy the soundtrack. I think it's a good soundtrack. It fits the vibes. I really like it. I think the cinematography is good. There are some very beautiful shots in there. The editing is great. The CGI is so good, in my humble opinion. I was very thankful. Maybe it has to do with the fact that I also got to see some of it up close and or hearing about the planning of it. It doesn't look like there's an actor and then a fake being. Like, it looks like the actors are walking alongside robots and are dealing with robots. Like, it actually looks real and that they're in the same place at the same time. So I really appreciate all the time and effort they put into that editing and that CGI work, and I think it paid off really well. I really like the costuming in this movie as well. I think it looks cool. I like Millie Bobby Brown's aesthetic in this film and sort of her demeanor. It's really cool. Kind of closed off, like rebel girl, so to speak. Very dystopian female lead vibe, you know. Also, I want to talk about Chris Pratt's character. I'm blanking on his name, and when I looked it up, it just says, like, Chris Pratt. So I'm like, is he just playing? Like, what is happening? His intro, iconic. It's really cool. I get big Andy Dwyer vibes from him in this. Like, it feels like Andy Dwyer in a separate dimension. Andy Dwyer got fired from Parks and Rec, and then some robot war broke out, and, like, this is what he's doing. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, some of the jokes and the demeanor and some of his delivery gives that off a little bit. I think his character in this is a lot smarter than Andy. Like, I'm gonna give him that. But the humor wise and his delivery of certain things, it brought me back to Parks and Rec just a little bit. I will say, like, the arguments are really good too. Like, I think the dialogue is pretty good in most parts of the film when it relates to characters having back and forth and having banter, especially like Chris and his robot Hermie. They have like a really good back and forth arguing. I loved watching scenes with them two back and forth. I love their friendship and their banter and all that stuff. It was really fun to watch. This movie has some really like sweet moments, heartwarming, you know, stuff like that. However, I do think that it feels a little manufactured, especially towards the end. It just sort of feels like, okay, like, I get it, you know what I mean? I don't know. I guess I was just maybe expecting it to move me a little bit more, and it didn't. They did a great job world building, and they tell you why what they're doing is important, and, you know, it's awful to hear about what is actually happening to Christopher, and, you know, he's so smart, but he's being used by this evil tech guy played by Stanley Tucci. And it's also crazy that, like, Christopher looks like he's in one of those cryogenic chamber things, whatever, in the lab, like when he's hooked up and his brain's working through, and Stanley Tucci is like watching over him. And it's so funny to me because I thought about back in Captain America First Avenger when Steve Rogers is in the little, like, cryo chamber thing looking at, I don't know, it looks similar to the thing that Christopher was in, and Stanley Tucci is the doctor in that. So it's like, if I had a nickel for every time I've seen Stanley Tucci walking around a cryo chamber with a person in there, I'd have 2 nickels, you know what I mean? Like, I think Stanley Tucci did a great job, and he's great, and I think all the actors did a great job in this movie, and Quan was great as well. I feel like he's good in everything, everywhere all at once. Wink, you get that? Sorry. I'm sorry. Anyways, he's phenomenal as always. He does such a good job. He's not on, like, camera for a super long time, but I don't know, he could have 1 second and do a lot with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just does a great job. Back to the manufacturing thing, like, the ending just feels very, like, we don't really need to spend a ton of time there, if that makes sense. Like, there's so much weight in the film, and then you get to the end, and it's like they drag it out a little bit more to make it more impactful, but I don't think you can make it more impactful than you'd already spent 2 hours on. I don't know if that makes any sense what I'm saying. It's just, it didn't wow me. I wasn't crying. Like, I was like, oh, this is emotional, and, like, this is a lot. This is a big moment, you know? I can't really think of another word other than manufactured to describe what I think about some of these more emotional parts, if that makes any sense. Again, I think it's cool. I think it's a cool concept. I enjoyed watching it. I had fun. There are some really good moments. The little video that like Michelle gives, I think it's a little cheesy. I don't know how I feel about it in terms of the necessity of it. I was sort of checked out already at that point. Okay, like the movie's over. But again, I think it was cool, and the CGI is just absolutely phenomenal. That I keep going back to that, and I'm sorry, but it is so good and it deserves recognition. The movie just didn't wow me. That's pretty, like, it's a good movie. It didn't wow me, except for the fact that the CGI was great. I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. I think it's a good, solid movie. If you like dystopian and the sort of sci-fi, like, robot war situation, check it out. I think it's pretty cool. Great soundtrack. Fun to throw on. The action sequences are cool. You know, they've got some good back and forth, good jokes, things like that. You know, there is some emotion. Go check it out on Netflix if you haven't seen it already. That's all I have for you. Pickle's pick for the week is a new release, The Best Is Yet to Come, by Jeff Goldblum and the Mildred Snitzer Orchestra, featuring Scarlett Johansson. You heard me. I don't know if it's just me or like I had no idea this was happening, and I was just scrolling on TikTok and I hear this sound and it sounds like Scarlett Johansson's voice singing, and it's like very jazzy, and like I already knew she could sing, you know, and I was like, oh, like this sounds really good, but like is it one of those AI, you know, people get celebrities singing like AI whatever, and I was like, I don't know, whatever. And then I'm scrolling again and Jeff Goldblum's TikTok pops up on my For You page, which love him. His TikToks are crazy. Like they're so funny. He had posted one time, this is a sidetrack, but he had posted one time just a bunch of really cool photos of him, and it was like aura. What? Okay. Legend. Like, okay. But he posted about the song. It was like, me and Scarlett dropping this little thing, whatever. So I went and listened to it. Hello. I didn't know I needed that, but I do, and it's great. So that is my recommendation to you. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in, however you decided to. Please make sure to like this podcast, leave a comment or review, subscribe to the YouTube, follow on all the social medias, and make sure that you share this podcast with your family, friends, and whoever else you would like to know about it. I really appreciate all the support, and I will see you next week for the season 2 finale of What's the Dill. I love you. I hope you have the best week. Now, it's time to close the jar. Bye!